Hey guys, welcome back. This is Ben Schultz, also known to the music making world as The Fledgling, and we are in part 4 of 7 in the Deer in the Headlights tutorial this evening. If you haven't already, please go take a look at parts 1 through 3, or if you're feeling brave enough, we're welcome to have you in this part to pick up as much as you can. You're welcome to sit and stay. So, last time I left you, we beefed up the synth section and added a few parts to flavor. This will be subjective depending on who you are and what your ear likes. Or if you're going for accuracy, you may find that something else sounds better than Adam did up here. It's purely subjective, so experiment, figure out what you want, and add ornaments accordingly. But the point is, we got all our notes we need, now we just need to move them. And that's the main difference between our piece and Adam's piece up here. So to give your ears a refresh, to figure out what we're aiming for here, I will mute myself and hand it over to Adam and bring you on to the 800th time I've now played this excerpt. He has a lot of crazy pitch bends and a few vibrato modulations in there too somewhere, and we'll set that up first, and then we'll go into the hyperdraw section, which is the part you've all been waiting for. So, the first thing we need to do is set a few things up so when we move controls, things will happen. So I'm going to start and explicitly explain the bass, and I'll do everything to the bass, and then I'll leave the rest up to you to go boldly forth and figure out on your own. So let's set some things up here. If you have an external MIDI keyboard, if you're fortunate enough to, and if you play a note and move the pitch bend wheel, you'll notice that, well, nothing happens, and that's perfectly fine. If you followed my directions explicitly and did the oscillator and the cutoff and the modulation down here, and routing and things, you should not be able to hear anything when you move the pitch bend wheel. And that's because I specifically omitted one short, small piece of information, but that will be remedied here and now. What you're going to look for let's first make the pitch bend wheel work, and what you're going to look for here is this little box right here, the bend range, and you're going to want to change this number. I used an 8, but these are all semitones, which are half steps for you musical nerds, and so this will allow the pitch bend wheel to move 8 semitones in either direction, up and down. So let's take a listen to what that does here. I'm going to hold down a middle C and then move the pitch bend wheel like crazy. Some wacky sounds. So that's what you need to do to get this working. And the joy of this is that you don't even need to set up anything in the router section. It's all pre-hardwired in, like the third envelope is to the amp. This is to the pitch bend wheel. The second thing we're going to need to set up needs a little bit of fine-tuning, and I'm going to put my headphones on for this one, and we're going to deal with this middle parameter here in the router section, the via parts. So we need another modulation, and the idea is we want to modulate the pitch of oscillator 1 by an LFO, or low frequency oscillator. This is always running. One of these, we're going to choose one of these, and it's always running, and we want to control how much the synthesizer reads, or how strongly it reads this LFO, whether at all or a lot. And we're going to do that by way of the modulation wheel. And so I'll show you how to set that up now. So let's begin by just asking ourselves what we need to change. We need to change the pitch of oscillator 1. And lo and behold, the target of oscillator 1 is up here. So let's click on it. And let's choose our source, which will be a low frequency oscillator. For argument's sake, I'm going to just change this to LFO2 because it's the simplest one of the two right now. And we need to set up something to control the way this machine reads the LFO2. And before, when we set up our cutoff value, we didn't use this parameter at all, but we moved the efficacy triangle alone, and that set that at a static value so it could read the envelope exactly upside down, as we later figured out. But we're going to use this and this middle menu here, and if you do the drop down menu, we'll see we have a mod wheel option. So we click that, and now you'll see that this little green triangle has a friend. And this is the highest and lowest point at which you can set your mod wheel to work here. And that's actually how much the pitch will bend if it reads off of LFO2. So we need to set things up here. These have a bunch of different forms. I'm going to use the triangle way because we need it to equally go up and down pitch-wise. We don't need it to start high and go low. We don't need it to do the inverse. We don't need it to switch on and off. We don't need it to be random square waves, and we definitely don't need it to be random sine waves. That will just create confusion. But if you're going for something like that, and if you're programming a synth later on that needs this, feel free to experiment. There's nothing that says you can't do that. But for argument's sake and for coherence sake, I'm just going to say use a triangle shape for this oscillator now, and let's dial in some values here. So right now this is not doing anything. It's at DC, which is the 0 point, and so let's move this up, and the higher it goes, obviously the faster it goes. So these are low frequency oscillators by definition, and also by audibility, because you can't hear frequencies this low. Human ears generally can't hear anything beneath 20 hertz, and you'll notice that this is half a hertz. So let's play a note and see what happens. And so we need to move it higher. And oh, I have the, hold on a second. Let's see here. If I move this down. Interesting. Let's try to move the whole thing up. Excellent. Okay, so the green triangle controls where your signal begins, and then the orange triangle controls the maximum point of your mod wheel that we have set up right now. So here is just the dry signal, and then I'm going to move the mod wheel up to its full potential during the note, and then move it back. So that's how that works if you want to set that up. And so that this is just like defining the bend range over here. And that's pretty much it. We have the rough parameters set. You may want to refine the rate of this low frequency oscillator later on when you're actually programming things, but for argument's sake, we'll just leave that be. So now we have everything set up in our synth we need, and now we can go on editing things. I'm actually going to do this in the next video, so sit tight and I will see you on the flip side.